Doctor Who 1st, 4th and 10th Doctors. Now, this was a 2-pack, so I only got the first one. I think this is the first one. And if you bought both of them, you also got K9, which would have been cool, but I thought I'd try them out. And these are different to the regular Doctor Who miniatures, because the regular ones are metal and these are resin. And that's also because this is by Gale Force 9, and apparently they did a different game. And I don't know if that... I assume that was before Warlord got the license. I don't know if Gale Force let their game slide, or the license ran out, or they didn't renew, or whatever. And a deal was done to release some of their minis in Warlords. Now, they've only done the 2, and I don't think they're doing any more. And I don't know actually what they're like, so that's what this is going to be. So they've got the... That's the back. The 1st Doctor, who is one of my favourites. The 4th, which is, of course, Tom Baker and David Tennant. We have 2 or 3 David Tennant figures now, I think. Which I don't mind so much, it's all cool. Although I think we have 2 roughly in the same sort of clothing. Different poses. So it would have been cool if we start to get him in, slightly different, because he did wear different things. So just going to open it up and see what we get. So we've got a top opening box, and it comes the same as all their others with a plastic interior. And game cards, which a lot of my early ones I got didn't come with the game cards. So I don't play the game, I just like painting the minis, and I use them in the RPG. But it's still very cool to start seeing these cards come in, and there's a few in there. So I thought it would have been 3 cards, but we have the 1st Doctor, the 4th Doctor, the 10th Doctor, Eloquent Speech, Would you like a jelly baby? I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. We all are. They're all one piece, and they sit inside their individual cyber tomb. And just from first look, they don't look too bad, but I will now take them out and we can have an actual closer look at them. There has been a little debate over these figures. Why use another company's ones? They have been out for a while, and this might simply have been a case of an opportunity was there to get some more figures released. Do I like them? Overall, yes, but I have to admit that I like metal minis. I have always felt that they have painted better. Resin I am not a fan of, as a lot of companies use the cheap stuff. It might hold detail, but it is brittle and will break easily. If it's for a game, then those kinds of figures will be a disaster, as with all the moving they will get broken. The other option is plastic, which seems to hold up to handling well, but a lot of them have subpar detail. Always be wary of ordering plastic minis when the only reference you see is 3D generated, as the figs won't look like that. I have been very happy with Warlord's plastic bolt action figures for the customization you can do, and the Doctor Who line for the detail. The sculpts are excellent. They look like the characters, and the detail is excellent across the board so far. There are, however, 2 things I don't like. One is the lack of dynamic poses. This is, I think, due to the figures being a single piece. This makes it easier for people as there is no construction at all, no superglue, and if kids are involved, that's a good thing. But the sacrifice might be more action poses. Now our mix is cool. I don't mind some just standing ones, and there are ways to make them a little more interesting. Donna's granddad is an example. But can we have no more of the companions standing with arms folded, or hands in pockets? The other problem is all the modern companions are wearing regular clothes. I know this is not something Warlord has any control over, and it is utterly subjective. At least with the earlier companions we were painting 1960s and 70s fashion, which is a little different than today's. Which leans me a lot more towards the bad guys because they are interesting. So this is a little different, as these are not Warlord's minis. They look to be plastic, which will hold up to a level of abuse. The detail looks good at first glance, but it is a bit of a mixed bag on closer inspection. The pose issue remains with this mini. It isn't very dynamic. However, having said that, it does work for the first Doctor. It feels right and feels within the character. While I think they could have gone a little more motion, it is okay. Detail is fair. It isn't as good as the Warlord ones. Rose was an excellent figure and looked like the character. Her details were really sharp. This one doesn't come in quite as sharp, and some of the details are not uniformed. The pattern on the trousers is an example. One thing about this mini though is the material looks tough. This mini won't break if you drop it. For use in any game, that is not a plus, but almost essential. Some games use multi-part metal, and while I love metal figs, the multi-part game ones are just waiting for disaster. This isn't a problem you will have here. Overall, I am happy with this mini. It tells the story it needs to, and while I wish it had a little more detail at the end of the day, it certainly is not bad. William Hartnell is one of my favourite Doctors, as without him the series would not have survived like it has. The 4th Doctor miniature is by far the best miniature in the box. Now I know many people will say that because it's Tom Baker. Everyone loves Tom Baker, and a level of critical consideration does not always happen. When looking at Hartnell's mini, it does fit, and his was a more contemplative Doctor. His pose reflects that. The 4th Doctor's pose might have been running into Romana after thinking her dead and finding her very much alive. It reflects his passionate nature, and you could think that it is an amazing piece of originality. But you would be wrong. Now I honestly don't know how important this is, as it is very subjective. The pose is a copy from what I believe is a publicity photo. Now, one part of me feels that, as we are dealing with minis, that there is an opportunity to do something new and not fall back on tropes. Having said that, I realise some people love what they consider iconic moments or poses. I am not considering this a fault, as it is so subjective and is the best pose of the 3 figures. His hat is one full solid piece, and it would be nice for it to have had the hole for his head, but with some careful drilling you can fix that, so it's not a huge issue. The overall detail feels a little sharper on this fig than on Hartnell's. The scarf has clear patterns, though the multicolours used on the scarf will still be a pain in this scale. I think David's fig is the worst of the 3. It isn't bad exactly. I think it is a couple of things that make me feel this way. The pose feels the most generic of the 3. It lacks Baker's exuberance, and while Hartnell's is not dynamic, it does feel very First Doctor. This one just feels like a pose. But I think the thing I dislike the most about this mini is the hair. It's really exaggerated. Now if the whole series was cartoonish, then it wouldn't bother me. But it just feels a little off. The rest of the figure is not bad. The suit and coat are nice, with enough detail to shade and highlight. I really love that we have Doctor Who miniatures now, and overall I think Warlord has done a good job of it. Where they are lacking in my opinion is story. Now they are for a game and not collecting per se, so the need for story might not be needed at all in the figs, so that could be a valid point. What do I mean by story? Well, I'll pick 2 sets here as examples, Lynx and Iron Gron and the Empress of Mars. Iron Gron is an extremely well sculpted figure. The detail everywhere is excellent, as is his likeness. What I don't like is the pose, as it lacks story. He was a bit of a fool, but he wasn't stupid, and he had guts. He stood up to Toadface. He had ambition and drive and passion, all of which are not in the mini. His pose has him holding his axe close to his chest in a defensive position that says he lacks confidence. It doesn't exhibit any of his character traits. Lynx was aggressive and strong and have at you. His pose is functional but also lacks his aggression. Empress of Mars has a different problem. The Empress herself is nicely sculpted. Her companion is the problem, standing holding a teapot and cup. Did he do it in the show? Yes, he did. The problem is there is no menace. Could you do a miniature about tea and it not be pointless? Yeah, I think so. Missy and Clara had a discussion under a passenger jet while Missy had tea. She gave off pure arrogance because she knew no one could stop her. Madame Vastra liked to do interrogations over tea, her soul-piercing gaze digging for the truth. The Ice Warrior just feels like he's holding a pot. Now would seated figures work for the game? Probably not. How many figures have their arms crossed or hands in their pockets? Martha, Rose, the David Tennant Doctor, Jackie Tyler, one of the Masters, Schoolgirl Romana, me from The Woman Who Lived, one of the Draconians. 2 characters have the same pose in the same pack in Voyage of the Damned. That, out of all the things Martha, Rose or Jackie Tyler did in the series, the poses that solidifies their characters is arms crossed? That's what I'm saying. I recently sat down with a couple of painting friends and looked over the line. Their observations were that the sculpts are often very nice and in some cases beautiful, but that while the poses are natural, which is a big plus, they are also dull. Too much repetition and a lack of action in too many of the figures. One remarked that it feels like the minis are relying too much on nostalgia in a crowded miniature marketplace, and they need to be interesting because so many other miniatures out there are. Does this mean that I think they will never get it right? No, and they do. In this pack, Tom Baker is fine. But I also like the Vasta Narada, which are nice and creepy, the Silence, the Jadoon, the Mavellans, the Ogrons, Unit, the Zygons, Headless Monks. Overall, these packs are quite good. I think Warlord gets the hardest thing right, the quality of sculpts. They look like who and what they are meant to, and not just in passing. That is indeed excellent work. I think they are also doing a good job of mixing the lineup in terms of era releases, classic and modern. They are showing a lot of love for the show and the actors, and I think the license is with the correct people. They are doing a lot right, and I am happy that Warlord is doing it. I will be buying more, and I'm looking forward to the new releases they have coming.